So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this Lunch and Learn webinar with K-12 Insight. We're so excited to have you all here with us. And I just want to start with a few logistics. We'll have the chat and the Q&A feature open the entire time, so please feel welcome to add your questions and comments at any point. We'll be watching for those and we'll be happy to answer and respond in real time. We're also going to be sending out a $25 DoorDash gift card as soon as the webinar is over. So watch your email inbox for that. It'll go to the email that you registered with. And with that, I will pass it over to Sarah to get us started. We're going to be joined today by some incredible volunteer guest speakers that are going to share their experiences with and methods for building meaningful dialogues with stakeholders.
Thank you so much, Isabella. I appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining. Let me just get adjusted here because I just got all out of whack. My apologies. My apologies, resetting here. Thank you for joining us today to learn a little bit about just managing communications workflows while creating meaningful conversations. As Isabella mentioned, my name is Sarah Maston. I'm a regional account director here with K-12 Insight, and I'm joined by Dr. Scott Menzel, Superintendent of Scottsdale Unified School District, and Kristine Harrington, the Director of Communications at Scottsdale Unified School District. I do just want to mention that they are joining us today purely as partners. They're great thought leaders in the communications space, and we appreciate their partnership. We are in no way providing any payment towards them for their participation today. They're just doing it out of the kindness of their heart to share their story and a little bit about how our program has supported their journey with communications along the way. So thank you both for joining us. I really appreciate your time. Forgive me, everyone at the forefront. I loved your state of Arizona the other day, but I seem to have brought back some allergies with me. So if you hear me clearing my throat once or twice, that is why. So I had too much fun in the sun there in Arizona. So just a little bit about who we are here at K-12 Insight and what we do. We focus on just building trust through communications. School districts do a really excellent job of communicating outbound messages to their stakeholders, and you've probably got a handful of tools at your disposal that really do this and do this really well. However, what we've heard from districts that we work with across the nation is that handling those inbound communications can really be a much greater challenge when it comes to listening to your community. We also recognize that trust is the foundation of a thriving school district, and building relationships and effective two-way communications kind of plays a part in that. I think it's safe to say that trust is also important for building your district's brand and really helping to attract and retain those students, the families, the staff that you're trying to recruit, especially now more than ever. So a few key ways to help build trust really help. It includes listening to your stakeholders, clear and open communications, responsiveness to your stakeholders, and just being proactive within your outreach in those communications as well. Now, as we have our discussion today, I'd like to pose this question to the group. So what are some of the challenges you face when communicating with your district stakeholders? And I won't put anyone on the spot, but if you'd like to share, please feel free to just pop your answers in the chat as we go along today. We'd be happy to hear those and kind of incorporate those and maybe hear from our thought leaders today on maybe some of their best practices and incorporating that as well. We can go on to the next slide, Isabella. So for anyone who is unfamiliar with K-12 Insight, what we do is we have a platform called Let's Talk, where we deliver the only customer experience platform. It's really built specifically for K-12 school districts. And we've helped over 400 districts across the nation to utilize Let's Talk in building trust and creating strong community connections, helping to improve district-wide communications, identifying problems before they become a crisis, which is really important, of course, promoting family and community engagement, delivering superior customer experiences, and In today's conversation, we're actually going to explore how Scottsdale Unified School District is really working to simplify those communications while building trust and creating meaningful conversations with our stakeholders. And so that being said, what I'd like to do now is just hand it over to Dr. Menzel and Kristine to share a little bit more about their district. So Dr. Menzel, maybe you want to kick it off for us?
Well, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to spend a little bit of time talking about our partnership with K-12 Insight and Let's Talk in particular. Scottsdale Unified School District is a diverse school district in the east side of the valley here in Maricopa County. We serve just around 22,000 students on 29 physical campuses and 1 online school. And in the 2 years I've been here, we've had more than 8,500 Let's Talk dialogues. We are a unified school district, but we are not uniform. And so across our 29 campuses, we have different programs and opportunities for the families that we serve. And Let's Talk is truly an important vehicle for us to engage in two-way communication with our stakeholders.
Thank you. Kristine?
No, I was just going to say, I would echo that, because additionally, our district, it doesn't just cover Scottsdale, it also covers parts of Paradise Valley and Tempe and Phoenix. And so we found this platform really helps to bring all those unique voices to the table.
Thank you both for that and for the introduction and overview of your district. So we'll go ahead and just kind of jump right in. I know everybody's anxious to hear from you all. I'm just here. Nobody really wants to hear from me. I'm just a third party in this wheel. So Dr. Menzel, I know that you originally relocated from district in Michigan to Scottsdale Unified School District. I believe it was back in 2020. So correct me if I was wrong there and just missed that. But can you tell us a little bit about your experience in transitioning to a new district?
Sure, I did. I started here officially on July 1st of 2020. And of course, COVID was in full swing at that time. Prior to that, I'd been in Michigan for 18 years as a superintendent. And for at least a decade, I'd been working with K-12 Insight and utilizing Let's Talk as a tool. When I interviewed for this position, one of the questions the governing board asked was about communication and how I would improve communication with our community. Let's Talk was one of those tools that I indicated during my interview was going to be really important as we work to enhance communication with our families, with our staff, and with the broader community. And the board agreed and supported that. So we launched Let's Talk during my first year. There are a lot of things that are important about what Let's Talk provides, but during the pandemic, when there are a ton of questions and concerns by our parents, by our staff, Let's Talk really created a platform for us to not only gather information, but to provide timely and consistent feedback to our stakeholders. And so from a leadership perspective, there are a lot of things about the tool that are valuable. And as a superintendent, it's something for me that allows me to track what's trending over time, what the concerns are of our parents or of our staff, and to be able to utilize that to inform our decisions from a district office perspective.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. There's a lot of power, obviously, in having actionable data, and it sounds like you definitely saw some benefit in that. And we appreciate you bringing us along in the journey there at Scottsdale too. We've loved having you guys as partners, so it's been fun. Kristine, would you mind? You've got kind of a unique perspective to bring to the district, I think, which is a lot of fun. I'd love to hear more about that if you could share with everyone.
Yeah, well, I first became familiar with Let's Talk as a parent in the district. And so I have a daughter that attends Pueblo Elementary School. And when I first remember the rollout of Let's Talk, I immediately thought, what is this? And what I was most immediately impressed with is the different opportunities to connect with the right audience in the district. So if it wasn't something that my child's teacher was immediately going to answer, especially this is during the pandemic, there were a lot of moving pieces. So I, of course, knew I didn't need to go straight to the superintendent necessarily, but you could, if nothing else, weigh in and know that your voice was heard. So I always kind of wondered, though, what that looked like. And now being on this side, it's really interesting to see where that lands and how all of that is organized. And so I'm most impressed with how we're able to use that to inform other communications. So Dr. Menzel mentioned, understanding sort of what's trending. So if this is something, you always want to know sort of what the chatter is, or how, or what sort of curiosity is out there, or misinformation. And what I appreciate about this tool too is you sometimes don't know who the right person is to reach out to if you're curious about what you heard being true or false. And so this provides a good place for those folks to reach out and actually seek clarification. And that's what I've been most impressed with, is first how we were able to use it to sort of catalog and track and organize how our community was feeling, for example, masks or no masks and those kinds of things. But then additionally now down the road, hopefully really use this tool to correct misinformation. I always start with a big thank you. Like, thank you for just reaching out and asking the question and providing us the opportunity. And we know if we get that question more than once, then we probably need to do, reassess our strategy to communicate out to the whole audience.
I love that. I just love the fact that you were a user of it within the same district that you're currently a user on the other end.
I might have been anonymous. I was just weighing in with my opinion, but see, that's the nice thing. I mean, then you knew, okay, here's a parent and here's how I'm feeling, during this, crisis of COVID. And so it's as important sometimes. I mean, I know that the anonymous, we're very good about following up. And so you're immediately acknowledged, even if it's just that, you've been heard essentially. But then if you are somebody who has, identified, because you really do expect follow up to the question and that additional layer, then we're very quick to respond, and you can see, what's coming in and who best to assign it to, because maybe I'm not always the best person to respond. So we've got teams set up, and it's nice that we can just direct it to the right person and get an immediate response to that person.
Yeah. What I'm hearing there is that a little bit of your journey as a user on the other end kind of carried over and sifted into your world as the comms leader there within the district too. And it sounds like kind of helped to shape your approach a little bit in what you're doing on your day-to-day.
Yeah, I had no idea how much, honestly, how powerful the tool was, because we've got 22,000 students. And so they come with with many parents with many very diverse perspectives and opinions. And it's just, as I said, it's a tool that allows us to be very thoughtful and really take a temperature check of what it is that we're doing. We don't have to solicit the information. It's just a tool for them to provide us, their information, really.
That's great. Thank you so much. Dr. Menzel, I heard you share earlier, obviously, that the program was something that you kind of wanted to bring with you when the board asked you about the communications plans for the district if you were to come on board. So would you mind sharing why it was so important for you to implement a solution to support communications and customer service, and kind of why you wanted to support that transition within the district?
I appreciate the question. Effective communication is two ways. And oftentimes what we see in public education and probably other sectors is one-way communication. We're either giving a message or our customers are sending a message. But to create a true dialogue where people feel heard, acknowledged, and then get responses to their questions or concerns is a unique opportunity. And schools have emails. And during the course of my career, I've had numerous experiences where someone has sent me an email with a question. I've forwarded it to someone on my team and assumed that it got answered. 2 months later, I found out in talking with that individual that the person I forwarded the email to never responded. Now, that's really terrible customer service. But there's no way in just an email environment to stay on top of all of those things. With Let's Talk, I, as the superintendent, have the ability to see all the dialogues. You can forward emails into the system, and I can see how long it takes for my employees who have been given the opportunity to respond to our customers, how long it takes them to respond, and what the customer satisfaction score is in response to that. So it helps hold us accountable to timely and thorough communication. It allows me to get a finger on the pulse of our staff who are using Let's Talk, as well as our parents. So from that perspective, I had seen the benefits in Michigan and knew that it was going to be something that would be important here in Scottsdale.
Love that. I think that's one of the questions that we see come up quite often. How is this really different than email? And I think you just kind of touched on a lot of that, because with email, there's a little bit of the, once you send it off, you don't know what's happening with it. So there is a sense of accountability, and it's never meant to be a gotcha, right? Like that, I'm sure that's definitely not how you're using it, but it helps to support that communication and ensuring that there's a follow-up, which helps to build that brand, that trust, the accountability and transparency within your district, which I know was important to you. So, Dr. Menzel, I know Kristine, you weren't here for this one, so I apologize to have him capitalize on the conversation, but we can maybe circle back on it too with your approach. But I'd love to know what steps you took at the beginning to kind of help introduce a new solution to your district and help to bring your teams on board. I know that this was an initiative that you were pretty driven with, but what did you do to bring it to your teams?
So I had full support of the governing board. And that was where we started, but there was a lot of concern on the part of my staff. They didn't know what it meant. It's one more thing that they have to learn. And so my approach was, having had so much experience with it, we really zeroed in on not going full scale initially, but focusing on a core component of menu items for the communities to select. And I helped walk the leadership team through how the process worked. And so we started small and then we worked to scale. So in the first year, we didn't include all of the building level principles specifically and all the buildings as options for parents to choose. That was always part of the plan, but never part of what we started with. We started at the district office level. And I was hands-on from the very beginning so that I could model how to respond to questions, how to delegate, how to add team members, how to assign responsibility, how to do an internal dialogue that isn't seen by the customer, but can help ensure that we're giving the most accurate and timely response. So that was how we started. And then as people got more familiar and comfortable with the tool, they picked up. And so I can look at the dashboard and find out what the customer satisfaction score is on the quadrant, with 10 being the highest score you can get, and then how long it took to get there. And when we have staff members who are struggling, I can support them and just reminding them to make Let's Talk a part of their daily practice. We also brought on our administrative assistants in the central office to help with assignment, to make sure that people didn't lose a dialogue that had been submitted, so that it didn't age too long. But it's really important for us to reiterate the fundamental importance of two-way communication. If we want to have the trust of our parents, not only as we were coming through the pandemic, but in delivering the highest quality education so that we're preparing world-class future-focused learners, we have to be responsive. And Let's Talk is a way to be able to do that and document how we've done that.
Definitely sounds like you're very intentional and thoughtful in the rollout. I think some of our strongest implementations, such as y'all's, kind of take that approach where you get the grassroots, right? You need to see sometimes we need to prove that it works before we can get the buy-in of the whole group. And I don't know if there was any pushback internally, but it sounds like you did a really good job at working through that with your leaders within not just the district office, but the school level as well. We're getting a couple questions. I don't want to bypass them. But I might bounce back to some of these and just I think some of these might be addressed as we move along too. So if not, then we'll definitely circle back to them. Kristine, I'd love to know more about your communication strategy today. What has been the journey of your district's communication strategy, and where are you guys at now?
Well, we have a plethora of ways, of course, to connect with our community and vice versa. But where Let's Talk has fit into that, I think, is again filling the void with that two-way communication, but also helping to inform our communications moving forward. So, for example, after the shooting in Texas, we immediately had parents reaching out, asking us questions, and you might get one or two. You start to see more. You recognize, obviously, this moment calls for immediate attention and reassurance of our parents of our safety and security measures that are in place. And so that's where, like, this tool, again, whether folks are going to pick up the phone and call me or email me, it's one more way to get to the heart of the matter. And in that particular case, I think it really did inform the message Dr. Menzel, that you and I crafted moving forward. It's again, another opportunity for us to sort of keep our finger on the pulse of the community and the other stakeholders that are not parents, maybe don't have that a direct line of communication with us. They don't know that particular person to reach out to. And this is another place for them to reach out either with questions or also sometimes it's just simply a statement. Somebody just wants to be heard, and that's okay to be anonymous. It doesn't require us to follow up, but it's something that we've heard and we can catalog and remember, and it makes us better moving forward.
Absolutely. And I know just in previous conversations too, we've talked a little bit about, that communications loop and really helping to ensure that there is a timely and appropriate response and making sure that it's closed, right? We don't want to leave anybody hanging. And you guys have been very intentional about making sure that that doesn't happen.
Additionally, sometimes we might think, okay, this can wait until the Friday letter or until the monthly newsletter or until the governing board meeting. And then we see, no, this can't wait because, this is something that's like popping on Let's Talk. And so again, it makes us a better communicator with our stakeholders and more responsive. And that's our job as in the communications department is, to be customer service centric and to make sure that our families are getting the information that they need. And those families are not just those that are, most closely related to our schools, but live in our boundaries too.
Absolutely. Kristine, this might be a good one and a good time to bring in Brittany's question. What are the benefits of Let's Talk that you've noticed in your role as a communications professional?
Well, that's the most recent example I can think of. Yeah, is that it really did help us frame the communication in light of that recent, tragedy in Texas. It really helped us think about this. Of course, this is what we're doing, but then additionally, this is what our community needs to hear. So here's how we frame it moving forward to have the greatest impact and reassure families, because nobody should be scared, every day dropping off their student that, is their student going to come home? Here are all the steps that we've taken. And I think that's really important. And then additionally, to redirect to all the other resources that are on our website. So that two-way dialogue, we don't just leave that hanging and then communicate over here. We absolutely close the loop here and provide additional resources if that's what it calls for, and highlight the different areas on the website. So provide that immediate response, but then recognize, okay, this is bubbling up. And so now here's how we're going to communicate. And thank you for helping us frame it in the most powerful fashion.
I love that. I'd like to ask, you guys offer an Ask the Superintendent topic within your Let's Talk on the website. Dr. Menzel, why is this important to you? And how would you say that this has kind of helped you as a superintendent with listening to your community and communicating with them?
Well, Scottsdale's not a small district. It depends, in Michigan, most of the schools have fewer than 1,000 students as a district. Arizona is similar. Most of our schools are small, rural, and remote. And we've got a number of large districts, and Scottsdale would be one of those, but we're not the largest. I think we're the 12th in terms of student population. But it's impossible as the superintendent to be at every building, at all of the conversations across the community. But it's really important to know what's on the minds of our stakeholders. And it's not just our parents and our students and our staff, but it's also the taxpayers who have been generous in their support for facilities within our community, for maintenance and operating override votes. And so to create a formal way for people to ask their questions to the superintendent, it's human nature to just want to go to the top. Let's skip the various chain of command issues and go right to the top. Here, this allows us to gather the questions and then make sure we have the right person responding. I respond to a lot of the Let's Talk dialogues, but there are some very specific questions where I need to send it off to someone who's the expert in our pupil accounting system or the expert in what's happening at middle schools. And so we have the ability with the tool to make sure the right person's providing the response, but to open it up for anyone to ask anything indicates that we're willing to be transparent and open in terms of what's happening in Scottsdale and how we're going to respond. There are times where people have not appreciated the response. They didn't agree with the decision that we've made. There was no right decision sometimes in COVID because you had 50% of the people who thought you should do something and the other half that thought you should do something different. But by and large, people appreciated the fact that we were willing to engage in that conversation, and that that we provided an explanation and rationale for the decision. Having clarity around the why helps people understand even if they don't agree. And Let's Talk has facilitated that dialogue between our various stakeholder groups.
Goes a long way additionally to sometimes quieting the noise, because if you do have that follow-up conversation, so even if we masterfully communicate on the front end, there are always inevitably there are going to be more questions and parts of our community that are seeking like a greater depth of understanding. And so this is that opportunity to engage in that dialogue, and then they can go out and share with their friends and families and in their more narrow community there maybe at their campus exactly what it is that they were able to glean. And I tell you time and time again, I hear just how impressed people are that they actually hear from the superintendent, that they actually hear from, an executive director, an assistant superintendent who's taken the time to respond. And a lot of the messages aren't long. They're pretty quick, but there's just the opportunity for further engagement. Like maybe it does warrant a phone call or whatever, but it just continues to bridge whatever gap and understanding exists so that then those folks can go out and continue to hopefully, ideally, sort of quell whatever it is that's out there.
And I think that's important too. You're talking a lot about the community and their approach too. So changes are hard and change takes time as well. So, but after a while, they start to see, you know what, we're hearing from the superintendent. We reached out to him and he's responding, or they got me a response in a really timely manner. And those conversations start to shift, right? Now we're not talking about nobody's getting back to me, or they're not talking about whatever drama is hitting the streets about, something crazy happening across town, but they're talking about, what, if you're having a problem, just submit the inquiry, right? Because somebody's going to get back to you. In this case, it might be Dr. Menzel, or it might be somebody else within the district, but they're going to get back to you. And so you start to build that foundation of trust and that transparency that we've talked about within the community, which is so important. And it does help to, as you said, Kristine, kind of help to quiet the noise a little bit, right? Because they're not now shouting it across other channels of communication that we have a little less control over sometimes.
Yeah. And I think even to that point, I mean, you make it part of your daily practice to come in and, check the Let's Talk dialogues. But what I like to is that we can trigger some alerts so that if there is a word that implies an actual threat, it's not just an algorithm that is going to determine that, but that there are additional human sets of eyes that will review this, and then it will generate sort of that next level alert in my email inbox as well. So then I know that this needs more immediate attention. So I can go to that next person who is either best suited to respond, or it may just be myself, but make sure that that loop is closed and more quickly, and that we either get that student or family the resources they need, or we're able to clarify, what it is that's going on.
And I think that's really important. Like you said, we all hope that we don't have to deal with a crisis situation in which we have to reach out to a family, or there's something such as what happened in Texas, right? But unfortunately, those things do happen. There are students that sometimes face bullying or other challenges within the district that sometimes we need to pay more close attention to. And so on the back end, we absolutely obviously help to review those. So that way we're making sure that you as a district aren't bogged down by unnecessary things, because there's bound to be things that either mistakenly could have triggered you at 2 a.m. Or potentially just come through and they shouldn't have. So we definitely tried to take a team approach with you guys on making sure that you're seeing what's most relevant, so that way you can act accordingly too. Dr. Menzel, one of the questions that came through was about advice for new superintendents. You talked a lot about your approach. If you had to offer some advice for new superintendents, either around communication strategies or otherwise, what do you think that would be?
Well, for me, it starts with listening. I don't think you can be a credible leader in any community if you don't first listen and understand where your people are coming from. And there's no substitute for in-person conversations. I'm a fan of town halls. I'm a fan of community conversation, but you can't always do that all of the time. And so having a tool like Let's Talk keeps that door open all of the time, whenever it's convenient for the people in your community to share what's on their mind, because you don't have to just ask a question. You can share a suggestion, a comment, a concern, a compliment. And we have the ability then to look at what are those trends in our community. So I would say, from a new superintendent perspective, making this part of your communication strategy non-negotiable is important. Whether it's Let's Talk or some other tool, people need to feel heard. And I know of other superintendents in other communities where people say, I never heard back from the superintendent. I sent X number of emails and never got a reply. That erodes trust, doesn't build trust. And so for new superintendents to build a base of trust, opening the lines of communication is critical. And then when you go to the community and you have an ask, whether it's for a bond issue or core funding or whatever it is, they know you, they know that you're open, they know that you're going to be honest, and you've built that base of trust. And so to me, it's the first step in building the credibility necessary to lead.
Thank you for sharing that. You just talked about, kind of some trending topics as well, and making sure that you're paying attention to those things that are becoming hot topics within the community and the district. I'm going to toss this one to either of you. Kristine, I don't know if you're more closely tied to it and helping to pull that data and information or not, but how would you say that you've leveraged a tool like Let's Talk to kind of help to identify some of those trending topics or address any hot topic issues that might be popping up within your community?
Well, again, having the parent perspective and weighing in myself as a parent during COVID, and then, joining the team here in December, still in the midst of COVID, and over winter break, when COVID made another big push, and all of us were wondering, okay, the strategy we laid out for what January was going to look like before break, does it need to change? How do we need to evolve, maybe, or not? This tool provided us a really, 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 really good glimpse of where our community was. And clearly they're very divided, just like, the nation and the world when it came to what was the best practice. But we were able to hear and better understand exactly what the mindset was and what the fears were. And so we were able to follow up with each and, maybe better, or at least reinforce what it is that we were doing and what the expectation was on our campus, and most importantly, the why. And I think that's what it all comes back to. And what was nice about in the tool that I learned, and again, not having known this as a parent, but thinking, because I have some experience in communications, like, oh my gosh, they must just get inundated. How do you organize all of that? You're able to tag the different comments. And that was like the greatest part of the tool. So you could really start, at least from my vantage, because it gave me a better understanding of, okay, of the people weighing in. Of course, we know this isn't necessarily representative of the whole, but these are the folks that have enough concern that they're weighing in and they're on both sides of the line. So we were able to see, just sort of take like a straw poll, if you will. Here's where we've got the most folks weighing in, if they're mask or anti-mask or whatever it is, and kind of organize and as best we could understand the feeling in our district. So that was pretty powerful.
I think that's important, right? We often hear from those who want to make their voices heard, but there's a silent majority that we don't always hear from. And being able to collect that information by people who just don't have the time to attend the meeting or pick up the phone, but they want to send and share their thoughts and their feelings. And this kind of gives them an avenue to be able to do that. And sometimes just a safe space by being able to click that button and say anonymous. I think earlier you joked that sometimes you submitted something as anonymous.
I did. Well, it just didn't matter. I didn't need to have anybody reply. I didn't need to take anybody's time, but I kind of, I didn't need to go to a podium either to be heard, but I did want to be heard. And so it provided that outlet. And now I know it was read. It absolutely was, and taken into account. And the tags are nice because you can design them so you can have, safety and security, or, bullying, or whatever it is, and sort of categorize them and start to understand, okay, here's what's really trending in this community that we need to push in. More people are talking about this site or another site. And so I think it makes us better leaders. It makes us better at our jobs. It provides us an opportunity to better support the sites, because maybe this hasn't bubbled up there, but we're seeing it through Let's Talk.
Thank you for sharing that. We had a question: how does your district promote Let's Talk? And I'll reframe that just slightly too, to just say, like, is there anything you guys do that you put out that says, if you have questions in response to this, please respond through Let's Talk, or click on this link after sending out a newsletter? Have you all done anything creative to kind of try to, back to an earlier statement I made, almost like retrain your community that this is the avenue we'd really like to communicate with you in, because we can have a two-way dialogue?
It is. So we do provide, just as you said, like at the bottom of a communication, if you have more questions, feel free to reach out to us on Let's Talk. So that's frequently there. And then additionally, it's on the bottom of all of our, like on our district website, but then additionally on all of our school websites, was another point of contact for the district, but we reinforce it in our communications.
I love that. Back to a comment that you made earlier, Dr. Menzel, your unified school district, but not uniform, right? Everybody kind of has different ways that they want to communicate. And so the easier we make it to find us, the easier it is for them to do so. So I think that that's really important, because everybody thinks about things differently and sees things differently. So putting it there in front of them in a format that they're used to seeing already is probably pretty important to getting that communication and having that two-way dialogue opened up. What would you say, and again, this one can be for either of you, what are your future goals for your communications department as a whole, and then also as a district, and the strategy behind it?
Well, I really truly believe that the greatest communication is happening probably between the teacher and the parent at the very, very, very hyper local site, and then additionally from the administrator and at the site. But then there's so much that we communicate from the district level, and this helps to obviously inform that. But our strategy is to provide the tools that our teachers and our administrators need first and foremost to continue with that communication, which is so important, and then to continue to build on that through the district. We know that our emails don't get read probably at the same rate as that which comes from your child's teacher or principal, but we absolutely want to be available. And this is a great way for us to support whatever's happening at the site, because we want, when there is so much noise, whether it's political or pandemic related, we want to be able to be that buffer so they can focus on the really good things, and those hot topics can come back to us and we can just address it in this two-way dialogue, and or on a larger wide community or district communication.
And I would add that when I think about a Scottsdale unified standard of excellence for communication, Let's Talk not only is a great vehicle for enhancing communication, but it provides an accountability aspect where we can look at the data, track the trends over time, identify where we're dropping the ball and where we're doing very well, because we want to reinforce the people who are excellent at communication, and we want to support those who might struggle with timely or complete communication. This tool allows us to take an overall view and identify, is there an issue at a building level, at a district level, in a department? And how do we ensure that we're meeting that standard of excellence for our school district that's essential to maintaining the trust with our community? This fall, we're going to our voters for a district additional assistance override or a capital override. We're going to be able to put a specific Let's Talk tag or box in our dialogue so that we can focus attention on that, have people get their questions answered before they vote. It's imminently and easily customizable based on what emerging topics and trends we see. And it helps ensure that we're accountable for meeting the high quality standards we have in Scottsdale.
Again, unified, but not uniform. And I think I use that one more broadly though, as a nation, and even just as a state, every district is different. You guys are going to be different from your neighbors, and you're certainly going to be different from someone who might be 2 hours north of you or south of you, or what have you, right? So every district is different. So having the ability to really make those topics that live within your Let's Talk implementation, customize them to fit your needs of your community. And there's a seasonality to it too, right? Like sometimes you're going to have back to school issues that you might need to make forefront and present, or you're going to have specific topics such as what you just mentioned that you want to put forth more presently than others. So having that flexibility to kind of manipulate it in real time, just with a click of a couple of buttons. I know you guys are familiar with that, but just being able to do it pretty quickly, I know is important.
Well, and what I found too is I think now it's gaining momentum. So it's absolutely not just a place for people to, I don't know, complain about masks or something, for example. We have more people now sharing celebrations and those sorts of things as well. Community members too, about art contests, or even, I mean, sometimes it's a vendor trying to connect, but you don't know who to connect with. And so it has become sort of like a landing page or a clearinghouse, if you will, of communication, so that it gets directed to the person best suited to respond, because sometimes you just don't know who to email, and this provides it to land and maybe with the right team, or at least get directed to the right team.
You know, it's funny you say that. One thing I never thought much about until I joined this organization was the titles that districts use. And as an outsider looking in, you look at those, if you're not familiar with who does what and what's what, sometimes the titles can be confusing. So you can get those communications that land in your inbox that have nothing to do with you, because as just a regular person not familiar with education, you just don't know who to contact sometimes, and you take a best guess. So there's that accountability piece and being able to maintain visibility to it, which is so important when you're talking about consistent communication with your community too. So I know we're getting close to time here, so I wanted to just I wanted to wrap it up and just share some great things that y'all's community has said in response to some of the things that they've gotten back. Dr. Menzel, we couldn't pull all of the ones that said how great you are with your communications and hearing back from you directly, but there are plenty of those. But just some quick ones. So great help, immediate responses, answered all my questions and helped guide me where I needed to go. I didn't expect a response so quickly. Love this accessibility, right, that we've talked so much about already. And then I very much appreciate the possibility to send thoughts and questions to the district and receive answers. Thank you. And all of those, of course, they were rated 10 from parents and guardians within the district. I think it's important to say this could have been the one and only time that you guys had the opportunity to engage with these parents, right? Like, you know, we hope that if they had an ongoing issue or other concerns, that they might have reached out, but this very well could have been somebody who was interested in joining your district for the first time and had questions about that, or had challenges with their student, and it could have been the last straw. You know, when we talk about student retention, that one and only touch that you might have with that individual is so important, and you guys are knocking it out of the park with your communication. So this is more of a congratulatory slide than anything. Y'all are doing a really great job, and we truly value you as partners, and obviously your community loves having you around as well. Right here's just my information. Of course, if you all have any questions for Kristine and Dr. Menzel, I know you all are a pretty tight community there in Arizona, so you can probably reach out to them directly, but also feel free to reach out to me. And I'm going to make an assumption that they're probably open to chatting with you, because they're great at sharing their story and their ideas and thoughts around it. We've had some active participation with some questions, but I do just want to give this last minute to see if any others flow in. So we'll hang out here for a little bit. In the meantime, if you all have any last minute thoughts that you'd like to share with the group as well, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, it's been a lot of fun. I appreciate y'all joining me today. Always love your story.
Thank you for the opportunity to share our experiences here in Scottsdale.
You all bring such a unique experiences, both of you. It's it's a beautiful thing. And I love everything that y'all are doing there. So I hope that everybody else enjoyed this today as well. Seeing no questions rolling in, I think that was like a long enough, what they call it, a teacher pause, right? So I think that was a long enough teacher pause. We'll go ahead and start wrapping up. But as I mentioned, if anyone has any follow-up questions or you want to talk further, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to get you in touch with Dr. Menzel or Kristine as well. So, all right. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.